Indeed, we have seen the speech given by the president at the National Assembly, a tradition that he is hoping will now be a Democracy Day tradition, whereby the president of the country, whoever he is or she is, addresses the National Assembly on Democracy Day. And we also have seen other reactions by Nigerians who planned protests for that day. Some were held in Jos. We also saw what happened in Lagos, as put together there by our correspondents. Well, we are taking other reactions right here in our studio and also virtually, because as we do know, the president's speech was long, taking jabs at the opposition and also conferring national honors to some prominent figures in the democracy struggle. Some of them, though not conferred with honors, were given presidential pardon, some of which has also elicited reactions. We'll be taking a look at some of that with our guest here in the studio. Dr. Ladan Salihu is right here with us. He's the former Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, a chieftain of the PDP, and spokesperson, League of Northern Democrats. Thank you so much for joining us this morning in our studios.
Thank you for having me up there, and
nice to have you as well.
Good to see you.
I would have said Happy Democracy Day, but it's a day past the day. Is it still valid?
It is.
It's still valid because of the season now, isn't it? We also have joining us virtually Dr. Sarah Chidebere Joe, who's a senior lecturer at Senior Lecturer Development Communication Studies at the River State University. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. Development Communication Studies. Fantastic. So let me start with you, Dr. Salihu, on your immediate take on the president's speech yesterday. He seemed very energetic, full of life. He reflected on the environment even, talking about how, what came to his mind when he entered the National Assembly, talking about the role of the National Assembly in a democracy, going down memory lane to see, remind us of how many times the National Assembly has, intervened to save the nation at critical junctures of this fourth democratic journey that we're currently on. And then he also, of course, took swipes at the opposition, especially in the glaring criticism that, Nigeria seems to be tending towards a one-party state. What were your immediate impressions of the president's, a day after reflections on the president's speech?
Well, first of all, it's a mixed bag, really. When you look at the comprehension of the speech itself, I don't know who wrote that speech. As I walked into these chambers, suggested that the speech was being written as he was probably, arriving at the National Assembly. So Nigerians, somebody will ask, a critical mind will ask, who wrote this speech? I think he needs to get better speech writers. But then, coming to your question, my take.
There's something wrong with that? You didn't like the fact that...
Yes, I think it could have been couched in a more sophisticated presidential, tone that will reverberate.
You think it was too conversational?
Yes, it wasn't. That aspect of the speech. My take on the whole thing is that in line with the, sober reflection of the moments of June 12, of our struggles, the travails and triumphs of, democracy, and all the issues that are, germane to the growth of our own political culture, I think it's good that he was at the National Assembly. It's good that he had to use that platform to speak to Nigerians and to kind of connect with his constituency and kind of marshal out his own, plans for the future. But, I see it also as a missed step. As a missed step because I would have thought that at a time when the nation is groaning under the yoke of extreme poverty, multi-dimensional poverty, at the moment when Nigerians are, struggling to get by, at the moment when you have the country facing challenges of insecurity that is not only atrocious but atrocious, at a moment where inflation is shooting through the roof. One would have expected that the president will rally around Nigerians, the clarion call, to be not only united, but to see the green, white, green, and the crest, the national crest, as a badge of honor. I am not particularly, I'm impressed by the fact that, some, notable politicians of repute were given posthumous awards, like, Pa Rewani and the rest of them. Kudirat Abiola and her husband, they have played, pivotal role in nurturing our own, democracy. And all those who participated in the struggle to keep the Nigerian democracy going.
Not forgetting Shehu Yaradua.
Shehu Yaradua, all of them, deserve that honor. And so we must appreciate the president for that. But apart from that, it does not really, he didn't touch base with the average Nigerian that expects to have a kind of, put food on the table, create a secure environment, allow his children to go to school, create, health, intervention opportunities, and what have you. I am concerned right now about what the average Nigerian or Nigerians are concerned about, the issues that will make life better for all of us.
Would you say that the speech then was a reminder not to take, because in the light of what is, in the light of the economic reforms that we're currently going through, it is true that a lot of people are facing, very severe hardships. However, do you think that the speech was geared towards not letting us forget or take for granted what it is that we currently have? Given the fact that in recent times, some people have been romanticizing what has been happening in neighboring countries, such as Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. We've been hearing things like that making their way into Nigeria. Do you think that this is a reminder that what we have is still, is still special? It's not perfect, it's far from perfect, but that we shouldn't take it for granted? Do you think that's what he was driving at?
I think in a way he was trying to convey that message, and it is true. However, the problems, whatever the, the level of disagreements that we may have, and, in spite of everything and all, I think we must all appreciate the fact that we are governed by, democratic norms, principles, and practices.
All right. And
whether we're getting it right is another thing. But it's better that we go this way than think about what is happening in our neighboring countries as a yardstick.
Okay. Let me quickly go to our guest who's on with us virtually, Dr. Sarah. Dr. Sarah, you happen to be in Port Harcourt in Rivers State right now, which is, will I say, an anomaly in our current democratic experience. Because right now, Rivers State is experiencing emergency rule. And the governor of the state, the democratically elected governor of the state, has been suspended, replaced by a sole administrator as appointed by the president. Will I say, the legality of that is still very much in dispute as those matters have been taken to court. But I don't know if you could describe for us what it felt like being in Rivers State yesterday as that speech was being given, and even as Nigeria was celebrating Democracy Day.
So much, Mope, and thank you for having me. The thing is, a speech is a powerful weapon, especially coming from my background. A speech constructs meaning. It shapes perception, legitimizes narratives. I believe that the president yesterday lost a massive opportunity. And that opportunity, I think, is linked to and with restoring constitutional order in Rivers State. While I don't have issues with a sole administrator, no matter who he is, the thing is, Rivers State is silent. It is quiet, unusually quiet. And the reason is this: we don't feel like we have leadership. Our governor is gone, and that's really, really sad. yesterday, I believe, would have been a great opportunity for his office to be restored. I think the president, in doing that, would have conveyed more strongly his desire for democracy. I looked at the speech, especially as someone with a communication background, and he lost me the moment he said, a parliament that embodies the will of the Nigerian people. I really wanted to listen. But as soon as he said that, he lost me. But because I had the interview today, I had to construct and do a quick framing analysis. And the summation is this. The speech yesterday read like democracy was being extolled as a sacred journey, and that the president was centering himself as a chief reformer. But because a speech is really important in shaping perception, and as someone digging deep into what rhetoric means, it's not true that Nigeria is a democracy. If we happen in River State, we'll have a situation where women are now being objectified politically. What do I mean by that? Women are now held hostage, and this is my opinion, praying every day for something they should not be praying for. We shouldn't have a situation where we've sort of lost direction. And when we think about it more holistically, I think the 2023 elections, how flawed, in my opinion, that it was, led us to this point. If there's anybody who didn't think about the role of the 2023 elections in what we have now in River State, then it's a mistake. We were thrown into this sort of trap, and we're reaping the rewards of having a flawed system. So every time I hear Nigeria and I hear democracy, I think at best that what we do have is a pseudo or a flawed, deeply flawed democracy. And yesterday, the president, again, like most of our other leaders, lost a very strong opportunity to restore order. And that, for me, is really troubling.
Sarah, I'm going to come back to you shortly, just so we can get more perspectives from you on what you said. But I want to be able to get the thoughts of Dr. Ladan on what she just said. Let's talk about this reverse situation, because if we're looking at the 2 years of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, one of the major criticisms of this administration is what happened in River State. Whether you want to, no matter what brush you want to paint it with, everyone says this was unconstitutional. There were other ways that this could have been handled. Does that in any way taint his legacy? And then speak to the fact that yesterday many people saw what happened at the National Assembly. It didn't feel like a conversation with the Nigerian people. It felt like a conversation between the president and the political elite. Talk to us a little bit about that thought process and the situation in Rivers.
You see, what played out at the National Assembly, you know, if I want to, you know, take it further, was a meeting where rhetorics and sentiments were reduced into, you know, a speech talking to, you know, like minds. I did not see, you know, the whole system that we are witnessing today under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu and the APC, the leadership of President Bola Tinubu and the APC, is fundamentally flawed. When you look at what my sister just said in River State, the entire process that brought about this declaration of the state of emergency and the processes that followed that saw the exit of Fubara and the legislature was fundamentally flawed and wrong. Look, when you take it to the National Assembly, which was his platform yesterday, the National Assembly ought to have not, there should have been a count, not a voice vote, to give, you know, backing, legal backing to the state of emergency.
Yes.
We also played out in a manner that was so shameful. The Constitution is very clear. You have to take a count. It's not a voice vote. That was swept under the carpet. And then the gentleman who was the administrator was sworn in before even the votes were done at the National Assembly. What kind of democracy are we practicing? It's a democracy that is based on cherry picking.
Someone talked yesterday about the president's speech yesterday. And one of the things that they said, and I want to get your thoughts on that, is that it wasn't a state of, this person was criticizing those who were criticizing the speech. He said it wasn't a State of the Nation address. It was a Democracy Day address. And that it was supposed to extol democratic principles, celebrate heroes of democracy, which we saw the president do. You know, basically reminding the Nigerian people, in this person's view, of where we're coming from, where the fact that there was a military. And then he did, in many ways, according to this people who are in support of this speech, that he actually doused a lot of fires among the political elite yesterday. The Humphrey Musu situation was doused, the Ogoni Nine issue was doused, the Kudurat Abiola issue was addressed. So a lot of those things. And then the biggest question, which was the question of the one-party state.
Yes.
He reiterated, I said that the cries are wrong. So if we look at that, is it possible that maybe we don't quite understand what the meaning behind this speech was, that we're looking at it because we're expecting a State of the Nation address as opposed to a Democracy Day address from the president?
No, I think you know, what I would say to the entire speech and, you know, upon reflection is that he needed to take a page from the life and times and the history of Pa Alfred Rewani, of Chief Humphrey Nwosu, of all those that, of Shehu Musa Adua, and everyone that, you know, that got the national award yesterday. He ought to have taken a page from their book of political journey. These were Democrats. These were people that affected the nation's politics and political culture and political socialization positively. They laid down the marker. They charted a course, and everyone celebrated them while they were there. It is not the same with the contraption we have today. So what I think happened was a clever way of riding on, piggyback on the, you know, quality and credibility and creditworthiness of these esteemed Nigerians who labored to, you know, give Nigeria their best, to ride on those sentiments, to enter into the hearts and minds of Nigerians. No, I won't take that. We won't take that. Chart your own course. Create your own niche. Give Nigerians the best of leadership and let this country breathe. That's all.
Dr. Sarah?
Yes.
I mean, when we take a look at some of the things that have happened in the past 24 hours and juxtapose it with the past few years, you've been in the middle of a situation that we didn't quite know how it was going to unfold. In fact, before the president went to the National Assembly, Bode George was saying he should use this speech as an opportunity. You heard him when he said he should use this speech as an opportunity to forgive Fubara or whatever it is and let them go back to that democracy because he was voted into office by the people of Rivers State. We've heard a few things that you mentioned earlier, but when it comes to the sole administration that you're dealing with in that state, could you talk to us a little bit about what that is doing to the people who have been put in a situation where they're not enjoying a democracy that they asked for, voted for, and stood by?
I think we feel removed, absent, not included. And I say this as someone who is not in the politics, as someone who has been in the state. I've been here for over 40 years. And so it's really simple. I don't feel like I'm part of anything. Everywhere is quiet. I mean, we hear the rhetoric, we see the press releases, but nothing much is happening. I'll give you a classic example. So we have issues with education. A lot of our schools are dilapidated, and we need work done there. There's still major problems with cultism and insecurity in the state. And it doesn't seem like much is being done to fix that. It's one thing to be installed. It's another thing to be a part of the state. This is home for us. I never imagined that I'll live to see a day where we're being run by somebody else that's not from Rivers State, that's not home to us, that's not our brother, that is not somebody that we can talk to, who feels our pulse. I mean, I don't want to say, oh, anybody is perfect, but the fact remains that our governor, for us, would have been a symbol of, one, democracy, inclusivity, because we chose him, no matter how flawed the process was. I have to really emphasize that. He's our governor. He would have done more for us, but that's not what we feel now. And I say this, and I think a lot of people in Rivers State also feel the same. Well, I think the president has an opportunity to restore order, and the order that we need is the governor reinstated, and then we can make progress from there.
Yeah, I think there's also a reminder that the State House of Assembly, which is supposed to be the hallmark, you know, of democracy, is also in suspension in Rivers State. So I believe that when you talk about a reinstatement, I believe you mean a comprehensive reinstatement. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. We need order, complete order restored in our state.
All right, let me take you up on this issue of the tributes that were given yesterday. He referred also to the Ogoni Nine. And there's been some reaction in that quarters. The president granting full pardon to the Ogoni Nine who were killed under very gruesome circumstances by the state. And the reaction has been that, oh, why should it be a pardon? Because in this instance, they were not guilty. As a matter of fact, there was barely any trial before they were, you know, condemned to death, so to speak. There was, even if there was some trial, it was not a fair trial. It could not be qualified as a fair trial in any way. And so some people think that what should have been done is an exoneration, not a presidential pardon. I don't know if you have heard anything with regards to that. You know, has there been any conversation around it in quarters where you're privy to?
Yes. Okay, so our father and brother, someone that everyone in the state deeply, deeply reveres and honors, the late Ken Saro-Wiwa. For us, listening to the label pardon, it feels like, oh, you were guilty and now you've been forgiven. I think a majority of persons in the state will say, well, an exoneration would have been the best part. We understand what pardons are. They're purely political. If there were issues regarding the politics of it, the complexities of the conversation, maybe something else would have been done, but I don't think, and I think a lot of people in Rivers State will frown at the label pardon. We need more investigation. We need more robust understanding about the events surrounding the death of the Nine, and then a clear exoneration, so that I think a lot of these things will be a clearer path to peace, because Rivers State is such a complex state. And so when you raise some issues as delicate as the murdering of the Ogoni Nine, then you have to really tackle it holistically or let it be.
Well, this is not the first time we're seeing, you know, the president trying to touch this particular issue. I think even the last Democracy Day too, the Ogoni Nine were mentioned and they were honored. This time around, he is now granting a presidential pardon. It would seem that maybe it was some reaction from last time. But, you know, some people are now saying, no, this is not what ought to be, that what ought to be is an exoneration. But some people will say, well, there was a process for their conviction in the first instance. Maybe the only way the state can do it is to actually say whatever it was that the state found, they are pardoned.
Well, I think it is within his prerogative to, you know, do what he did yesterday. I want to believe that, you know, the president should take it further. Apart from, you know, pardon, there should be exoneration, there should be, in my view, investigation, and there should be compensation, you know, because these are people with families. These are people that were, you know, Ken Saro-Wiwa was a playwright, and, you know, he had people around him just like you and me. We have families. So what is the fate of those that they left behind? And I think we should be able to, you know, spread, you know, give that milk of human kindness as a state, you know, give some compensation, do some, you know, damage, if you like, repairs, and then see whether we can put the whole thing behind us, not to forget, but to always use that as a reference point to avoid future occurrence of, you know, the excessive nature of those in power. So I want to believe that we should take it further. I think there's a lot that needs to be done. You know, it is just a sad note. on our political history, just like June 12 itself.
Yes, indeed. I was going to ask you very quickly, though, do you think that if we go down that route of compensation, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but do you fear the doors that it could open as a result of that? Because when you look at the list of people the president did honor yesterday, and even still reminded by someone like Dr. Fayemi, saying that the list is not even complete, it's not even comprehensive with regards to this struggle.
There'll be a lot of
do you think that we'll be opening doors that we will not be able to shut?
No, I think it is symbolic. When I talk about the compensation aspect, it's just the human, the humanity in us that should be made to reflect, to open a floodgate of people coming in under the same, tranche, will be an impossible task. But then doing it will also give, Nigerians a feeling that, this is a government with a human face after all. This is a government that cares, and steps should be taken from time to time to intervene, not that it should be the norm. I think that is the way to go.
Well, we know that this conversation certainly will be on. It's just halfway through this, through the president's first term. We have to thank you so much for sharing your honest thoughts with us on the president's speech on Democracy Day. We also have to thank you, Dr. Sarah Chidebere-Joe, Senior Lecturer, Development Communication Studies at the Rivers State University. Thank you so much for sharing your very candid thoughts with us on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Ladan Salihu, former DG of the FRC, and thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.